Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 40k Fireside podcast. I'm David Gaylard, and I'm joined by my good friend Vijay. Together, we discuss 40k and the meta from our perspective, along with events we've recently been to and those that have got coming up. So come on down to the Fireside and listen. Alright, everyone, welcome back to the 40k Fireside podcast. Vic and I are doing this one back to back.
Awesome.
We're going to be chatting about our impressions of the official spoilers or faction focuses for 10th edition. And we're going to be doing more content around 10th edition and our impressions and stuff like that, but we wanted to, not get started early, but, we didn't want to go through all the full rules leaks for 10th edition yet, because there's a good chance that we get them wrong, because A, we haven't practiced them, and B, we're focusing on 9th edition and teams still. But one thing we couldn't really get wrong is our impression of the faction focuses. So what we thought would be cool is if we go through factions that we've previously played, because Vic and I don't have a huge amount of overlap there between what's been spoiled. So what we might do is go through them and maybe rank them, maybe a little bit of rank. Vic's going to be against this, I know. He's always against ranking things. But I guess maybe we'll do strong or weak.
Yes.
Strong, medium, or weak. All right?
Good idea.
That's broad enough for you, is it?
I think that, yeah.
And I think, just for context, we'll do strong, medium, or weak relative to the other spoilers, not relative to everything else we might know about 10th edition or how other rules work through unofficial things. That keep it simple enough?
Yes. And cool. As a disclaimer, I've read through the leaks for the core rules, which came out earlier this week, and Dave hasn't. No. So Dave has heard us discussing one or two things that we saw in those leaks, but Dave doesn't have the full picture. I have my first impression picture without understanding the full nuances of everything. And actually, at the end of the episode, I want to run Dave through a few rules that I found interesting and just try and get his idea and his reaction to it as well, which might be good.
And this is something we're both kind of bad at. But if you if you think that that's something that you would like because I haven't read basically anything yet. I don't really know much at all. Obviously, in our team chat, people get posted. But if you guys are keen on the idea of me not reading anything ever, and then Vic just rolling through all the crazy stuff and me and getting my impression, then let us know down in the comments, something like that. Maybe we can arrange something. I'll have to wear a blindfold in our team chat for the next couple of weeks. But if that's something good, we can organize that. So, without a doubt, should we maybe go straight into it? I don't mind starting off. I've got a faction here that I played a lot of. All right. I don't know how early on this was, but I'm going to be talking about Tyranids.
Hey, second one.
Yeah, so I think I'll just contextualize this. I think Tyranids might still be coming out of the naughty corner. So what I mean by that is I think, there's obviously kind of a optics to how strong or weak they maybe make some factions. Tyranids are obviously very strong for quite a dominant time there. So I think that does play a little bit of a role, perhaps. But that's just one of my impressions. But yeah, we get the first look at the Synapse rule, which basically says if your army faction is Tyranids, while a Tyranids unit in your army from your army is wholly within 6 inches from your army is within 6 inches of one or more Synapse models from your army. So if you're within aura range of Synapse, every time a model takes a battle shock test, if it's within Synapse range, take that on 3d6 rather than 2d6.
Nice.
And I actually think this is quite good because battle shock, I think, is something that's coming up a little bit more often now. From looking at the other spoilers, battle shock means, I think, that you can't control objectives or you can't use stratagems or something like that.
Yes, so, on that unit.
Yeah, so if the game is a lot less killy and a lot more primary play, then perhaps Tyranids are tilting in that direction, which I think is cool. Now, I think this is really cool, and I think they've done this for a lot of factions. The next one is the Shadow and the Warp, where if your army faction is Tyranids once per battle in either player's command phase, if one or more units from your army with this ability are on the battlefield, you can unleash Shadow and the Warp, which is awesome.
Oh,
when you do, which is a battle-wide effect. I think that's really cool. When you do, each unit on the battlefield must take a battle shock test. So I think the important one here is that you can do it in your opponent's command phase, at the start of your opponent's command phase. So if they have maybe something controlling an objective, you can try and force a leadership check on that, and then potentially flip an objective right, which is awesome. Yeah. And then they can't use stratagems on that unit and stuff. So
this really is an awesome rule because one of my favorite pieces of kind of thematic lore is how the Tyranids interact with other armies. And there's a book where the Eldar are fighting the Tyranids, and you get this moment where the hive mind just like points their attention at this group of Eldar Psychers, and just half of them just die.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Here comes the warp. Gene Stealers. Gene Stealers, from what I can tell, are a lot better. Now, we don't know the points, but Gene Stealers are a lot better than what they were before. They were 5 up invulnerable, which they keep. 4 attacks, strength 4 minus 2 damage 1, which is a little bit worse, but they get reroll 1s normally, and then they reroll all wounds if your target is on an objective, which is awesome. I'm assuming they'll have advance and charge. And then they also scout 8 inches, does that mean they pre-game move?
Yeah, that's right, exactly.
Nice. That's sick, dude. So you can move 8, and then you're 8 inches away.
It doesn't look like they have advance and charge, but I'm sure there'll be some way.
Yeah, I'm assuming there'll be a psychic power or a stratagem. I don't think Tyranids really function without that, which is cool. So Gene Stealers are a lot better because they were terrible for the entire Codex, which is a shame because I think they're one of the core like units, I think, when people think about it. Then we've got Swarmy. Swarmy doesn't look that good. That's just me. It totally depends on the points, of course, but he's got a bunch of 8 attacks, strength 9, minus 2 damage 3, flat 3, which I think actually relatively is quite a good profile. Strength 9 means you wound a lot of the vehicles on, is it still 5s, I think, maybe? I don't know what the toughness, but he's toughness 10, which is, he's chunky boy.
Sorry, Karen. No, you just mentioned about the strength 9 and kind of what you wound on against vehicles. And I think this is a really interesting point because a lot of the profiles for high strength weaponry, like melter guns and things, are sitting around that strength 9 mark. But a lot of vehicles are being shown with toughness higher than 9 and in the 10 to 12 range.
But no problem. I got you sorted. He's got something called Twin Linked, which I think is 4 rerolls to wound, is it?
It is.
Yeah, baby. Easy. So 4 rerolls to wound, pretty sweet. So 4 up invulnerable save, that's nice. He's got an ability at the start of your command phase. If this model's on the battlefield, you gain 1 CP, which is... Okay, that's interesting. I think gaining CP, my understanding is maybe players don't start on any CP, so if you gain an additional CP every turn, that seems pretty cool.
That's very powerful. Can you see his psychic powers anywhere, Dave?
Yeah, he's got the Dominion of the... No, actually, I can't see it.
He's got no psychic powers on his datasheet. The only psychic power he has is his ranged weapon.
The ranged weapon.
That's it. Crazy.
Oh, right, so they moved that. Oh, so he hasn't even got a buff psychic power.
He's got nothing.
Oh, wow. He's got a fucking ranged attack now, mate. Yes! I've always wanted that. And then... Of course, what always is the spoiler is some random gun that you're probably never going to play that's huge. The Rupture Cannon. It's got 2 attacks now instead of 1.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, it's probably terrible. In the Swarm is a stratagem from the previous Codex. You return up to D3 plus 3 models now of Endless Multitude. Now, it does say D3 plus 3 destroyed models are returned. So what I would say is that if you can return Gene Stealers... They might have Endless Multitude. No, they don't. You can't do that. So, I'm just looking for the most...
Just the little ones.
Just the little ones. But D3 plus 3, that's the same as they had it last time. So maybe that's good. Maybe that's...
What I will say is, the Rupture Cannon profile there at strength 18, minus 4 and 2d6 damage, being a heavy with ballistic skill 3. So if you stand still, you get +1 to hit. I think that's those kinds of guns, these big like fire prisms, rail guns, those kinds of things are going to be our very effective anti-tank compared to kind of the infantry based.
So anti-tank's becoming a little bit more of its own line, so to speak.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some the super powerful anti-tank is going to be very clearly described like the Rupture Cannon, and it's going to be important because of that.
Yeah. Nothing feels better than rolling 2d6 damage.
Oh, beautiful.
I'm joking. That sounds terrible.
Beautiful.
That sounds awful. 3 damage. Great. Yeah. Take that one back home to the bank. All right. I did Tyranids. Where do you want to start?
I think, I'm going to start with Sisters. So, actually, no. How would you feel about Tyranids?
I think,
how is that for
the stratagem's a little bit meh. I think the Swarmlord actually probably is pretty good if you gain additional CP. G-Stalls are pretty good, so I'm going to put them in the medium for now.
Fair enough. Well, I'm going to go for one that I think is a little bit stronger, which is the
Mm-hmm.
Adeptus Sororitas.
Mm.
So, Sisters of Battle have been one of these factions that have jumped in and out of popularity. I
Mm.
think even to this moment, they have strong rules.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really interested to see what they would do with 10th edition, whether they would go kind of make them stronger, make them weaker, or something like that. And
Mm.
I think they've gone for the route of actually making them a little bit stronger.
Oh,
Based on at least the army-wide rules.
okay.
One of the key mechanics that's always been there with Sisters is the ability to use something called miracle dice,
Yep.
which essentially allow you to kind of predetermine what a dice is and use it when you need to replace one of your rolls. And they still have that, and these miracle dice can be used for advance rolls, charge rolls, damage rolls, hit rolls, save rolls, wound rolls, and battle shock tests, interestingly.
Mm.
And you can kind of let's see, let's read this. Yes, so if a roll involves more than one dice, only a single dice can be substituted. So that's a change from before. You used to be able to substitute both of your charge dice to
Mm-hmm.
automatically guarantee like a deep strike charge or something.
Yeah.
You can no longer do that. So that's the
Just one
nerf
dice,
in
is it
there.
now?
Just one
Okay.
dice. You can still. I'm pretty sure you can still only do these once per phase as well.
Mm.
So that's the next restriction. Now, the buff here is that you get Miracle Dice in a few slightly different, easier ways. Overall, you gain one Miracle Dice at the start of each turn, and the additional one is each time any Adeptus Sororitas unit from your army is destroyed. That used to be only when a character dies.
Mm.
And then on top of that, you also get things like Battle Sister Squads, where if you hold an objective at the end of your command phase with a Battle Sister Squad, you gain a Miracle Dice.
What?
So if you have two Battle Sister Squads on two objectives, you gain two Miracle Dice per command
Whoa.
phase. And then there also come with things like banners, where if the unit with a banner destroys an enemy unit,
What do you get, like 4 dice at this point?
you gain another Miracle Dice.
Ah.
And
Oh, piece of
then
candy. Oh,
you can
piece of
also
candy.
take cherubs in units, and once per battle, after you perform an act of fate, so that's using a miracle dice, you can gain a miracle dice. So there's lots of different ways to
Oh,
gain miracle dice.
but the cherub used to be shoot again, though, right?
It depends what kind of cherub. So the Battle
Oh,
Sister
different cherub.
cherub used to be something else where they can basically sub in whatever kind of two new dice, and they
Yeah.
pick one for a miracle dice roll.
Ah,
Which was an Incenser cherub, and I think they've kind of given them that in this case.
nice.
The whole army detachment rule is a really good one, I think. So it's kind of like the Order of Our Martyred Lady, where if you have any of your units below starting strength or below starting number of wounds, if it's a unit of just one, like a vehicle, you gain +1 to hit. And if you're below
Nice.
half strength, you gain +1 to wound.
Wow.
So there's some interesting things with that, and I think that will come up a lot in games.
Is there any way you can damage your own unit?
Yeah, I think you can take kind of like plasma pistols and things, which are
Oh,
hazardous. So,
very interesting.
yeah, for sure.
I just read through the performing an act of faith. I don't think it's limited to one use per unit per phase. I believe you can just. I mean, I'm not great at deciphering rules, but
yeah, I can't
think you
see
can
any
use it,
restriction.
So
It's pretty wild, to be honest, if that's the
yeah,
case.
really wild.
Yeah, that's really, really strong. And it moves on to the next thing, Dave, which I think is probably one of my biggest takeaway from reading all of these previews, which is talking about indirect fire. Now, indirect fire was nerfed recently in the balanced data slate to make the unit firing indirectly -1 ballistic skill and giving +1 to armor save.
Yep.
Those are things which stack with other stuff. So, -1, you're capped at a maximum of -1 to hit, but -1 ballistic skill is a modifier which goes on top.
Yeah.
That bit has been removed, and now you just subtract 1 from your hit roll rather than -1 to your ballistic skill.
Yep.
The other thing, the +1 to save, is also a kind of completely separate of anything else. So you could get at the moment +1 to save and also the benefits of cover for +2 to your save. Now they've just made it you get the benefit of cover against attacks.
Okay.
And interestingly, cover has been changed a little bit. You can gain the benefits of cover from multiple different things, but you can never go down to a 2+ save, if I remember correctly, via
Oh,
having
okay.
light cover. You're kind of capped at a maximum of a 3+.
Right, okay. So, okay, right. So you're still dealing, your opponent's still taking saves on 3-ups, despite if they could have previously gotten to 2-up saves.
Exactly.
Wow, that's
So
twice as much damage.
yeah, the thing is, like, if you're AP -1, um, uh, wait, how would it work? Let me think about this. Yeah, that's excluding modifiers. So let's say you have cover and you have a 3+ save.
Hmm.
It's not that you can't go down to a 2+ save. So if you are fighting against AP1, you go to a 4+ save. You
Yeah.
still get the cover, and that cancels out the AP1. You stay at a 3+ save.
Wow.
So that's
Strong.
fine. But AP0 weaponry is where it becomes really relevant.
Yeah.
And the weapon that they showed really cracks me up because it's the
Yeah.
Exorcist gun.
This thing has everything.
So
What?
this is blast. Okay, we can ignore that, but it's heavy. So that means it's +1 to hit if it stands still. It's an indirect fire gun, so you're
Right.
ignoring the -1 to hit with just by getting +1 to hit there, and then it also ignores cover. So so the exact restrictions they've just added are immediately being ignored by the first gun that they show, and this is actually a really good gun. It's 3d6 strength 5 0 AP 1 damage, and we talked about the benefit of 0 AP against 3+ armor save things. They don't have a 2+ save against that, so it's actually relevant against everything.
Yeah, and strength 5 is I think a
Yeah.
lot of the things are staying like toughness 3, toughness 4, toughness 5, right? So strength 5 is actually like anti-infantry.
Yeah, brilliant profile, and it's a little bit worrying because if they don't point these things at absolutely premium, then people are gonna like. It just takes 1 or 2 units like this
Yeah.
to create a situation where you build armies around indirect fire and managing opponents' indirect fire, which
Yeah.
is the kind of metas which are always the worst in
But
40k.
its other gun is also quite good as well. It's 36 inch range, D6 plus 2 shots, so
Mhm.
an average of 5 shots, BS3, but you get +1 to hit, so it hits on 3s. Strength 10 minus 2 D6 damage.
Yeah.
And so you can actually like pop some, wounding on 5s, but you're going into tanks there, and D6 damage, they fail too. You can miracle dice the damage. Or you
Oh,
can just miracle
definitely.
dice the wound, though, of course.
Oh yeah.
So you can
That
actually destroy tanks with this thing.
that gun is excellent, and I think
What?
you have to normally pick one or the other in this. That's
Are you
how
sure?
that's how Exorcists. Oh well, that's how they've always worked. You pick one or the other to put
Oh,
on the
okay, right. So it doesn't
big
have
organ.
both.
It doesn't have both.
Oh, okay. I thought it had both. Oh, wow.
It would have been wild if it had both. But yeah, you usually have to pick one of these two. But maybe they've changed it so that you pick one of the 2 firing modes. I don't know, but it's always been you pick one of the 2 guns to put on the top.
Wow.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that's an excellent indirect fire platform to
It's
start
a
off
huge
with.
change to the game, right?
Yeah, and moving on from that, we've got Morven Val, who's been an
Hmm.
absolute powerhouse in ninth edition. Very, very good data sheet, and she's using devastating wounds here rather than. So basically, currently she gets on any 6 to wound, she does a number of mortal wounds. Now, devastating wounds means any 6 to wound does mortal wounds equal to the damage of your weapon.
Oh.
In this case, she has a 3 damage weapon with devastating wounds, so that is okay. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
lost like a point of AP here as well, so she's probably hits a little bit less hard, but we don't have the full data sheet present there.
Yeah. Hopefully she's a bit less points because she was quite pricey previously, right?
She was like historically undercosted, and then I think they put her to the correct price. I think she's at
Okay.
the moment she's at the right place.
Mm.
And then the stratagem's pretty good. I think it's like a very strong one. It's when your unit has been shot, if one or more of your models have died from that unit, you can then shoot back at the unit that shot you.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a few things here which involve kind of like bigger units and maybe some retributors with some heavy weapons.
Yeah.
The opponent kills a couple of them, you get +1 to hit, and then
Yep.
you shoot them back.
Yeah. That's nice. And if
Yeah.
they're under half strength, they get +1 to hit and wound.
And I think, if any of those guns are heavy weapons, maybe they're getting +2 to hit, ignoring a -1 to hit, something like that. So
That's
yeah.
pretty sweet. Yeah, and obviously you can just miracle dice your saves to the point, like you can manipulate your saves to the point where you save the correct amount and then you spend 1 CP, use some wound rolls on your bigger guns, and then get a lot of value out of it.
Yeah,
Wow.
actually, being able to use as many miracle dice in a phase, I'm not entirely sure if that's the case, but
I hope
looking
that's
like
not the case. That seems very, very strong.
because actually that's very powerful defensively.
Yeah.
Because with 3 up armor saves with your power armor, you can really hold on if you have lots of miracle dice.
Yeah. That seems good. It seems like they've gotten stronger. And, I mean, yeah, obviously a lot of things depend on the points, but
Mhm.
the Exorcist seems quite good, right?
Yeah, it just depends on the rest of the rule set, but that's a very strong start for the sisters.
So where are you putting them?
I'm
High,
putting them
medium, or
in
low?
strong.
Strong?
Hmm.
Okay, nice. Let's go to one that I'm relatively familiar with at the moment. KDS stands.
Oh, let's go.
And I've got the front picture there. I'm sad that they didn't spoil the Dawn
Do
because I
you
just spent.
uh do you know that Cadia is actually dead, Dave?
Yeah, destroyed by chaos, right?
Yeah, it's
Oh, see, I know.
I'll send you a picture. There's a really good artwork of Cadia being split in half. I can hear the tear dropping
Yeah,
down.
that's
Oh,
no
that's so
bueno.
sad, man.
Um, so orders are. It looks like orders are different. I think that this is a. Um, I'm a bit broken on this one because I think the complexity of the orders was good from a player skill perspective and a ceiling perspective, but I completely appreciate that from an opponent perspective, it is over cumbersome and difficult to understand. So the voice of command rule now has the instead of splashing to all units within 6,
Mhm.
I believe it just splashes to 1. Now I'm going through this very quickly, so correct me if I'm wrong.
I
Now
think it's
everything is
just
moved.
one unit, yeah, at a time.
Yeah, yeah. So everything is moved to the start of your next command phase, which is interesting because that's actually a buff because many of them don't last until your next command phase, which is terrible rules writing because half of them do, half of them don't, and yeah,
Mhm.
and then some of them end in your at the end of your next command phase. So yeah, so I think it's good that they've consolidated that together. That's great. Move, move, move is just plus 3 inches of movement, which is in some. I think that's actually a buff. Auto Advance 6 is great, but it gives you a higher reach because plus 3 over versus plus 2. So, debatable actually. Yeah. Fixed bayonets, weapon skill, and, improve weapon skill. Oh, improves the weapon skill characteristic of melee weapons. Right, okay. Yeah, so plus 1 to hit. So that's been nerfed actually, so you don't get plus 1 AP now. That's a bit of a shame. Take aim is just plus 1 ballistic skill, so that's been nerfed. First rank fire, second rank fire, improved attack characteristic of rapid fire weapons. Each model is equipped with by 1. Now, this is buffed massively
Mhm.
because previously you'd have rapid 1. Well, okay, previously you have some weapons that can never go to rapid 2. So the big ones here being plasmas, and plasmas were like the staple of your army. So being able to go to rapid 2, my first impressions here, being able to go to rapid 2 for 4 shots on a plasma gun is kind of really good, given how prevalent plasma was. And then initially, it's better than the previous version where they became heavy 3 because you still net 1 additional shot, and then you're still rapid fire over heavy. But I don't think heavy has a penalty now anyway, so
Mhm.
that's interesting. Take cover. Improve the save characteristic of models in this unit by 1. This cannot improve the models save better than 3 plus. So a bit of a side grade here. It's not as good as on Sentinels because Sentinels already have a 3 plus, but is a lot better on Guardsmen because you can go to a 4 plus base save, then plus 1 save and cover.
Nice.
So you go to a effective 3 up and cover, right? That's cool. Duty and honor improve the leadership and objective control characteristics in model by 1. So that's pretty similar to what they had before. So it's interesting. I'm a bit sad they got rid of full throttle or objective secured, but they did actually. Duty and honor means you get improved leadership and objective control characteristics of models. You could. It looks like you could put that on a tank. I'm assuming. So
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Mhm.
But I missed something. Oh, okay, interesting. Oh, this is very interesting now. I missed this. If there's no mechanized orders, I'm assuming that you can put all of these orders on anything.
Mhm.
So you never had access to take aim on a tank, which is huge. So you can potentially go to Blister Skill 3 on your tanks, which is great. And then I'm assuming take cover doesn't really matter, right? Move, move, move is just plus 3 inches. So I've kind of consolidated that into what would have been full throttle previously, which is advance and shoot plus 2 movement. So yeah,
It's
we're yet to see.
interesting. I mean,
Hmm.
can you read that little bit just underneath the voice of command rule, where it says like command squads and castellans urge on your infantry assets, tank commanders direct your armored squadrons, and Lord
Yeah.
Solar inspires everybody. Yeah, I wonder if there's another set of
I
like
think
battle
you're
tank
right.
orders.
Yeah, because actually previously the ones that are spoiled here, those were the regimental orders that you had, right?
Mhm.
So that's interesting. I like it if there's tank, perfectus, and regiment. I kind of like that, although it
Yeah,
is a bit cumbersome.
hopefully.
So maybe reducing the splashing is quite good.
Mhm.
And then we've got Cadia shock troops, which apparently have got way better because you can take them in squads of 20 now,
Yeah, big squads.
which is cool. If you use a strat on them, on a 5-up, you get it back, which I think is a lot of troops kind of move to that one.
Mhm.
But as you can see, the plasma gun there is 7 minus 2 damage 1, but if you overcharge, it's 8 minus 3 damage 2, and it still has the rapid fire keyword there. So that
Still a
seems
very
pretty
good
sweet.
gun. Yeah.
But yeah, but you can make it rapid fire 2, right? So 4
Yeah.
shots.
That's a really good gun still.
Yeah.
At strength 8. Yeah, minus 3 AP as well is like a real rarity almost.
Yeah. So that's interesting. And I'm assuming Kaskin and Scions have the same gun load out there. So yeah, you can potentially get a lot of shots from these guys. The las gun is still the same at 301 rapid fire 1, but you can make that rapid fire 2, of course. So you get 4 shots per guys. That's interesting. Potentially some anti-hull there. And the 20-man bricks are cool. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
The Baneblade. I'm sorry if you're a Baneblade lover, but I don't care.
Toughness
There's very little
13.
chance. It does have one really sweet rule, which I think is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It's got the rolling fortress. Each time a range attack is allocated to an Astra Militarum model from your army, if that model is not fully visible to every enemy model from the attacking unit because of the Baneblade model, you get the benefit of cover. That is sweet. Nice and thematic there. Then we've got the Battle Cannon, which has never been taken in the new Codex, which is strength 10 minus 3 damage, flat 3, so not a lot of AP. But D6 plus 3, 48-inch range, blast, so it's quite a decent gun there. Notably, there is no turret keyword there. That's interesting. I think turrets were a really cool design. I don't know, maybe they've done something with that.
Be interesting to see what that full rules are on those.
Yeah, and then we've got the Volcano Cannon, which I think is the most impressive of useless guns that we'll never see. D3 plus 1 attacks. Hey, strength 24. Why not? Minus 5, flat 12. Come at me, bro.
You never know. These kinds of guns may be relevant. It would be really interesting to see.
Well, its 96-inch range is definitely going to be relevant. But I think this is the most highlighted thing of the release, which is the stratagem. This is called reinforcements ! Which is just quite on the nose. One regimental unit from your army that was just destroyed, you can use the stratagem on that unit, even though it was just destroyed. Good clarification there, Good, they've nice. Closed that loophole. Effect: add a new unit to your army, identical to the destroyed unit in strategic reserves, at its starting strength with all its wounds characteristics. That's pretty good. You can't return characters, but for 2 CP, you can return any regimental unit. Now, the Baneblade does not have regimental, I just checked. But 20 shock troops have regimentals, so I'm assuming a lot of the troops were. But I think what we're all thinking about is whether or not 3 Sentinels have that. Because returning 3 Sentinels for 2 CP could be really good, right?
I think they do have the regiment keyword, because just underneath, they put Sentinels as one of the examples of things you could bring it back.
You got him.
Yeah, nice.
So that's cool. It's a bit of a green tide thing, right? Or maybe the 20-man blocks of shock troops, or maybe you can get 20-man Scions or Kaskin or something like that. So,
I guess you have versatility because you can use it in any phase. You can even wait to get your CP back in your command phase ready for your strategic reserves. Yeah.
Wait, I wonder if you could do it in your command phase and then bring it on in your movement phase of that turn.
Yes, that's what it looks like.
That's pretty good. Nice. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna rate this. I think assuming that the orders are there's mechanized ones and stuff like that. I think this is in the low strong, is what I want to say. Mm-hmm. I think Guard always have a really good potential to have objectives secured, which I think is being a bit more prevalent in the spoilers so far. And the Cadian shock troops are OC2, for whatever that means. I think that means they count as 2 models.
Yeah.
So for the purpose of determining controlling objective markers, that could be really good. Mm-hmm. And I think that rapid fire +1 rapid fire seems
Could be
that
good.
seems quite good. Yeah,
Depends
especially
how many reroll ones to hit you have access to.
yeah, it's
If
true.
that is drastically reduced, then it may not be as good.
Yeah, that's true for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, KD shock troops have this sticky objective control as well.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, just a little one for you.
Plant
All
a
right.
little banner.
What's the? I know the one. You have to do this one next.
I'm gonna do one more in this episode, and this one is the one I'm most. So the two things I'm most worried about is indirect fire being too good, and then the other one is this faction being broken, because even more than Space Marines, I think the Eldari preview shows a number of rules which have a very high risk of creating something that's broken in the game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, do you kind of feel the same as well, Dave?
I think historically, I think it's fair to say that historically they've had a difficult time balancing this faction's strength with its army identity.
Yep. I think, you know what, honestly, I think how Eldar are at the moment is probably the best that they've kind of truly been in terms of a balance level. They've, like, for periods of time, they've been too weak. And for periods of time, they've kind of revolved around running lots of vehicles. Or lots of flyers. And for periods of time, they've had things like Yanari with Soulburst and just being absolutely broken. And they just struggle to find the balance with Eldari. And what you don't want to do is create two powerful base army-wide rules. We saw that with the Space Marines having this Oath of Moment ability, which allows them each command phase pick an enemy unit, and they get their whole army gets full rerolls to hit and wound against it or something.
Super Tome of Ictoclades every time.
and then like Guilliman lets you pick one more unit, so you're doing that against 2 units. So stuff like that has a chance, if you don't get the perfect balance on every unit, something that's impossible to do, that you just need 1 or 2 too strong or too efficient units, which then synergize and multiply with that base army rule to make too powerful a combination. And Eldar have a chance here because they have 2 very powerful army-wide rules. The first one is their detachment rule, which is called Unparalleled Foresight. And it's each time an Eldari unit from your army is selected to shoot or fight, you can reroll 1 hit roll, and you can reroll 1 wound roll.
So, and not only that, it's shoot or fight. So there's been so many iterations of this rule, right? You know, whenever you shoot, you know, you get to reroll a hit roll, or you get to reroll a wound roll, or you know, or whatever, right? And it's like, no, they got shoot and fight, hit and wound roll.
So this is like full-on master artisans, and this has constantly been a problem, this kind of rule. And now you've given it to an entire army. And what this does is it takes a lot of weapons, which are like low volume of shots, or any unit with combat with a small number of high quality attacks, and it immediately improves them, which is fine. It's very Eldar, it's very elite, and it does make sense lore wise. But you've got to get your balancing absolutely perfect on the units. What doesn't help is then their army rule is probably the strongest one that we've seen.
Oh, really?
And this
is
the
Strands of Fate, is it? Oh, I see. Is this stronger than the Miracle Dice?
This is stronger than the Miracle Dice.
Oh, these are super Miracle Dice.
These are super Miracle Dice, and the thing is, a lot of people who are commenting online are saying that the current Strands of Fate, where you roll 6 dice, you keep 4, and they are automatic 6s for their particular rolls, and you refresh them every battle round, is more powerful than this new rule. In my opinion, this is slightly stronger than the current rule set. And the current rule set is already probably one of the best army-wide rules in the game.
Quite good.
So this one is Strands of Fate. This takes a lot of inspiration from Age of Sigmar's Tzeentch Demons. At the start of the battle, you roll 12d6. And these dice stick with you in your Fate dice pool. Before you make a dice roll for any model or unit in your army, you can choose to use one of these dice for Fate dice. Let me check. Each Fate dice can be used once. Yeah, you can only use one at a time. God, I'm just trying to see if there's any restriction on a charge roll using it on both dice.
Yeah.
It doesn't It's a little unclear. I'm going to go with no, you're just going to do one.
Mm-hmm.
And you can swap in advance roll, hit roll, battle shock test, saving throw, charge roll, wound roll, damage roll.
But yeah, it says remove it from your fate dice pool and roll all remaining dice that are part of that dice roll. So I think
Got it.
the
It's
charge
just
roll would be
one.
2 dice roll, and you roll the remaining one.
Yeah, got
Oh,
it.
which
So,
would mean for the charge that you would need to substitute it, then do the dice roll, right?
same as now.
Oh, okay, right, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and there's no restriction on the number of times you can do this in a turn or a phase.
Ooh,
So you're front loaded with your fate dice,
yeah.
and you can use them. And this is very powerful again defensively. Can you imagine trying to get through a 4-up invulnerable save in the
Yep.
early part of the game when you have these fate dice? So you can really lock down parts of the game and guarantee things from happening. This is an extremely powerful kind of base rule, and it's made even more powerful if there are a number of ways of manipulating and improving the way you gain or use your fate dice.
Yeah.
And in this case, they showed the Farseer, who has an ability called Branching Fates, which is once per turn. You can basically, if you use a fate dice on a unit within 12 inches of the Farseer or himself, you can change one of the fate dice used to a 6.
So you get 5 more 6s.
Well, yeah, you basically change the dice you don't want, like the 2s or something, to 6s, which is very powerful. And then the Guardian Defenders have a rule very similar to the Sisters of Battle
God.
troop squads,
Yeah.
where if you control an objective with a Guardian Defender unit in your command phase, you gain an extra fate dice for your pool. So just one unit just on your home objective is getting you, another 5 fate dice
No.
across the game.
It's at the end of your command phase for each objective marker you control that has one or more units from your island's
Yeah,
ability.
so
So if
you
you control 2 objectives, you get 2 more fate dice.
Yeah, if you have 2 units of Guardians, yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
there's some really good ways of gaining more fate dice, and this is obviously not everything we've seen. There's a chance that there's even more than this.
What?
And then
Okay, wait. Before you
yeah.
go on,
Mhm.
I think this is a really interesting discussion around what version is better, the current incarnation or rolling 12 dice. Now, I'm going to make the case that the rule spoiled here, where you roll 12 dice. Let's just assume, for sake of argument, you roll 12 dice, 2 6s, 2 1s, 2 2s, 2 3s, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And you run 1 Farseer, and that maybe let's just say for the time being, we don't know if you can take 1 Farseer or 2 Farseers, right? Like, let's just assume you can only take 1.
Mm-hmm.
So immediately, your 2 1s and one of your 2s become 6s, right? So that's 5 dice. So at the moment, your current pool is 7 6s, 2 5s, 2 4s, 2 3s, 1 2. Okay, fantastic. And then you can add the Guardian Defender rule, which is, let's just say you get 7 dice over the battlefield, right? So because your Guardians might die, so that's 19 dice at the moment. So the thing about it is that can you substitute one of these dice for a psychic? Okay, that's quite interesting. You can't substitute one of these dice to do the fortune psychic phase buff, which is good.
You don't have to. Oh, I see.
It's a 2-up.
It's on a 2-up. Yeah.
Otherwise, you could use your 2s and throw them away, right? But the 1s and 2s are not necessarily useless, because sometimes you can stick a unit out, and having the ability to fail a save is actually not as bad as some people consider, because you can pull models out of line of sight, or maybe I guess you don't need to make psychic phases anymore, but maybe you're just taking 3-up saves. Like, cool, you can use that as a save, right? Like, or if you're hitting on 3s, or if you've got some mechanism where you can hit on 2s, then those 2s can suddenly become hits. And I think the important part is that those 6s, you don't just throw them away. There's probably going to be something where if you hit on a 6, or if you wound on a 6, it's like mega good, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Seems great. And all those 4s and 5s are like super good, right? You just, all your invulnerable saves, like, yeah, whatever. You wait for the big gun. I've got one saved already,
Yeah, this is super flexible and very, very powerful. And it just like can make your opponent just be like, right, I want to shoot this unit, but I know it's not going to die, so I'm not going to bother doing that. I'm going to do something else.
Yeah.
Even without you having spent the fate dice, I think this is extremely powerful. The fact that you can use all of them on anything.
What would you want to use it on? Is it perhaps the next spoiled unit?
Well, the next is, are you looking at the prism cannon, the
Yes.
mighty fire prism? So I have three fire prisms, and I'm proud of them because they're a beautiful model.
Yep.
But they look like they're coming in a little bit hot here. So the fire prism has a very powerful anti-tank and an anti-infantry profile.
Hmm.
How it looks here is that the prism cannon has the two profiles, and you select one of the profiles to make the attacks with.
Oh yeah. So for
Um,
the Exorcist, maybe it's the same one that we looked at.
Possibly.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So the dispersed shot is a 2d6, strength 6 -1, 2 damage shot. And then the focus shot is two shots, which are strength 18 -4 and 6 damage. Those are pretty tasty profiles. Good versatility there. But the interesting thing is the weapon ability to do linked fire.
Yeah.
And this allows you to basically, any fire prism can use any other fire prism that it can see to target enemy units. So
Yep.
you select your targets by measuring range and visibility from another friendly fire prism that's visible to you.
Nice.
So yeah, it encourages multiple fire prisms, and that's actually kind of the way that
Pretty
fire
cool.
prisms have always worked. They kind of like synergize together because they
Yeah.
shoot into each other.
Yep.
But what's interesting here is it's always been they shoot into each other and fire one concentrated shot at an enemy unit.
Mm.
This looks like they can kind of shoot at three different targets if you have three different fire prisms, and just use one fire prism as your kind of
Oh yeah, you're right. Because
unit
the
that shoots
old
out.
rule would be you would link fire the stratagem. You would get full rerolls to hit and wound only if you shot one target,
Exactly.
right?
All
Yep.
three units would have to shoot one target. Now they can shoot three different targets.
Oh, that's brutal.
This is nice. And
Wow.
it synergizes very well with a stratagem, which is shown here, which is Fire and Fade. Fire and Fade has been a mainstay for Eldar for as long as I can remember. And it's used at the end of your shooting phase. So this is even better than currently.
Yep.
Because currently, it's after you've shot a unit, you then immediately have to use Fire and Fade. Here, you wait until the end of your shooting phase. You choose one Eldari unit, so it's not restricted. It can be anything in your
Yeah,
army.
so you could use a tank, right?
Yep, absolutely. And then your unit can make a normal move. So currently, this is a 7-inch move. Now it's
Normal
become a
move.
So if we're assuming that, say, the vehicles can still move 16 inches like they do at the moment, that'll be a
What?
16-inch move with them.
Wait, does a fire prism move 16 inches?
Yeah, at the moment.
Oh my word. Oh.
And you can't use it to embark into transport, and you
Oh.
cannot select an aircraft unit or a unit which is in engagement range.
You can't select an aircraft unit. I'm glad they clarified that one.
And you also can't charge afterwards, which is fine.
Okay. Right, so you
Now
can't
it
charge.
is a 2 CP stratagem. So it
Yeah.
depends on how CP generation works. If you start on 0 CP, this may be a tad bit expensive, but it's extremely powerful.
So yeah, obviously I've heard about this one before, but I would just like to put something out there. So if we compare this to a stratagem that used to be good called Overrun, this Overrun was one of the most busted stratagems because you could move your Hive Tyrant, kill something, and make a normal move backwards, right? And the difference between 7 inches and a normal move is insane. For example, you know, being able to, sometimes you can't actually fire and fade a fire prism 7 inches back behind the train fully because of the way that the model is structured. But the ability to just, I mean, move, you have all the information you need, so you can see how much damage you've dealt across your shooting phase, and then you might not even need to fire and fade at that point, right? Because you might shoot your fire prisms first, and then you'd be like, oh, I do need to oh my word. So what you can do is you can bring your fire prisms out, shoot something, shoot the rest of your army, and then be like, oh, well, the thing that's going to be able to shoot my fire prism back is still alive because my shooting is whiffed. I will now use fire and fade on the unit that's shot at the beginning of my shooting phase and move it backwards.
Yeah, and restrictions have been removed on that. It's very powerful.
So this should be called Fire and Overrun because that's exactly what it does. In addition, why is this not triggered when your unit is selected to shoot? Or just after your unit has shot. That is so bizarre, right? It's just like, it should just be called move again. Like, shooting phase, just move again.
But the implications of this are obviously if you have any hammer unit in Eldar, often they are quite fast moving units. So you can end up with a huge amount of movement. And we found that, across 9th edition or even before that, anything which your opponent can't interact with is often very powerful. That's why, indirect fire is so powerful in the game. And that's why fire and fade mechanics for Tau and Eldar, jump, shoot, jump, those kinds of things are really, really strong. This just kind of really ramps it up because this is a very, very powerful non-interactive ability.
Yeah. So you don't even have to shoot.
No, you don't.
I'm
You
just
don't
gonna
have
put
to
it. I'm
shoot.
just gonna put it out there.
This is
You,
like fade and fade, isn't it?
it's just run and move again. This literally
Move
just says
again.
move again. You don't, why do you not have to shoot? That's so badly written.
It's funny.
Fade. It's just called fade.
It's just fade. Yeah, love it.
Oh my god. All right. Yeah. So
So I'm rating this faction at risk of being broken here.
at risk
Personally.
of being broken.
Like a high risk of being broken based on these base rules. This is impossible to balance, in my opinion. I think they just need 3 or 4 units which are good, and these base rules will take them to 1 million.
Yeah, the Fire Prism. By the way, yeah. So I completely agree. What I would say is I looked at the picture for the Fire Prism, and then I looked at the Sisters Exorcist, and if you look at them side by side, then they're done differently. So, for example, under the Fire Prism, it says Prism Cannon, Disperse Pulsed Focused Lasers. For the Exorcist, it just says one gun, one gun.
Yes, it doesn't have the little bullet points.
Exactly, right? So, just going to put it out there.
Choose your gun.
No, I think you have both.
No.
Yeah.
The Exorcist doesn't have both. You have to pick your rockets. That's how it's always worked.
But the Fire Prism does say, like, it says, it says the Prism Cannon, and it's got 2 modes. Like, the Prism Cannon is the gun, whereas the Exorcist one just says Exorcist Conflagration Rockets, Exorcist Missile Launcher.
I mean, they have a lot of organ pipes in there. They could just stuff half and half,
Strap some more guns onto it. It needs a direct super crack missile somewhere.
Make it a Desolation Marine. That's what we need.
Oh dear, we detract a little bit. Eldar seems super busted, but if you can get move again for 2 CP, I can get all my models back for 2 CP. So you use your Fire Prism to shoot my model, and I'm a guard player, and I bring it back for 2 CP.
We're back where we started. We can just keep doing that all game.
Yeah, and then 50-50 points, it's a draw. We're joking. The balance will never be quite that just. But there's been some.
Are you ready for a fight phase rule?
Okay, sure.
I'm going to do a fight phase rule and some stratagems.
Okay, right. Yeah, I forgot about this part. Cool. I'm listening.
So, fight phase rules. Charge phase. Let me get this up because I want to say it properly. Charge phase. All right. So your unit is eligible to charge if it's within 12 inches of one or more enemy units, as long as you didn't advance, fall back, you're not within engagement range of enemy units, or you're an aircraft. Now, things start getting a little bit funky from there, because that's all normal.
So you can't charge if you're an aircraft. Interesting.
You can't, no.
So you can't hover then charge.
Once you've selected an eligible unit to declare a charge, you can select one or more enemy units within 12 inches. The targets of the charge do not need to be visible to the charging unit. You roll 2d6 and then you make your charge moves. Now, your charge move must be sufficient to enable the following. It must be within an engagement range of every enemy unit that you selected as a target. That's the same. When moving, you can't go within an engagement range of an enemy unit you did not select as the target, and you have to be in coherency. Now,
so that's the same. Everything's the same as it was before, right?
Now, this is where it starts to get funkier, Dave. So, if the charge is successful, each model that makes a charge move, each model makes a charge move. Okay, so each model, after you make your charge move, if possible, you must move into base-to-base contact with an enemy model. Is exactly where it starts to get a little bit funky. Now, I'm going to throw another spanner in the works here and tell you that in the fight phase, you no longer are restricted to fighting units that you charged. And you can fight any unit that you're eligible.
Back to the old days.
Fight. Yep.
Okay.
And you can also only fight enemy units that are within engagement range, which is 1 inch.
Yep.
Or if you're base-to-base contact, your friendly models in base-to-base contact of you can fight.
So wait, does that mean like it's currently 1/2 inch and of 1/2 inch? Does that mean it's base to base? No.
Of base to base.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And it starts to get even more funky when you start to look at the pile-in and consolidation rules. So the pile-in rules now are that if you are able to get into base-to-base contact during a pile-in move, you must go into base-to-base contact.
Okay.
Which immediately reduces your ability to kind of flip around units.
Yeah, okay.
And then your consolidation rules are when you consolidate, you can only consolidate if it would either put you into engagement range of an enemy unit, can get you closer to the unit that you're fighting, or it puts you onto an objective and you can move towards the nearest objective.
Okay, interesting. Wow, that's a completely different way of doing the fight phase, isn't it, really?
And in
So,
all of these situations, if you choose to do the consolidate or choose to do the pilot move, so you can choose not to do them,
okay.
you must go into base-to-base contact if possible.
Right. Wow, okay. So if I'm right, then can you consolidate away from the nearest model onto an objective if you end on an objective?
Oh, that's an interesting one. Let me check, because that's a good question.
Hmm.
I think possibly you can.
So you're encouraged. So I think that one of the big things there is you're encouraged to base, which means that that's effectively what is it? That's their way of simplifying down the combat phase, right?
No, it's like it's a first level is that you have to consolidate towards enemy units. If these conditions cannot be met, then each model can instead make a consolidation move towards the closest objective.
Oh, okay, right. Okay, yeah. So if you can't consolidate base to base to a model, you can then consolidate onto an objective.
And if you can't consolidate onto an objective, you just don't make a move at all.
Right. Okay. Okay. Wow. I take it there's probably not a lot of fight twices in 10th edition, right?
I mean, they're going to be not very relevant, right?
No. Yeah. Well. Yeah. Because the fight twice would be like because you could fight units that you haven't charged now, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah. So
absolutely.
you can maybe wipe something and then consolidate in. But yeah, it's interesting. That's So you're gonna be. I mean, it reduces the amount of combat control you've got by a huge margin, doesn't it?
Well,
Really.
it does a couple of things because I think this does simplify a simple version of the game. So if you're
Mhm.
just playing it a bit more casually, this makes sense. You just run into each other and punch each other.
Mhm.
What it doesn't stop necessarily is little combat tricks completed by high level players.
Hmm.
A lot of kind of more competitive players use the fight phase, charge phase as extra movement for their units, better positioning, etc. This kind of reduces that, but also opens up other combat tricks because you can very carefully position everything so that you stop your units from, say, getting into engagement range of a unit, so you're freely able to use your charge move to move to a certain position and then
Oh.
tag and fight things which you didn't charge, which were further than 12 inches. So I think there's a lot of
Oh, wow.
little tricks that are going to come up and people are going to work out in this, but it's also going to break down the fight phase into extremely precise measuring for that to happen.
Right.
So it'll be really interesting to see if this ends up being a net positive or a net negative
Yeah.
for the play experience.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I think one thing I want to touch on just briefly on the last note there is that for 10th edition, I think 9th edition was such a massive revamp of the game and the fundamental way that the game was played that it's kind of different. It's difficult to revamp the game consistently, right, to the same degree.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like a lot of things they've done is it's kind of shuffling the deck chairs, so to speak. We're not fundamentally changing how the game is played, and it's difficult to create a new set of rules that are better than previously before, right? Because you're at the 9th revision of writing the rules from top to bottom, right? So
For sure.
I think one thing there is I did see the assault guns and the heavy guns, right?
Mm-hmm.
And heavy is +1 to hit if you're stationary, which unless you're indirect probably isn't going to happen that often. But assault is you can advance and shoot. Now, I think that's a good example of them. They've just rewritten the rules, and I don't think they're better than the previous rules because previously heavy was like, well, it's heavy gun, you're -1 to hit because you've moved with it, and assault was like you can advance and shoot, but you take -1 to hit as well. So it'll be interesting to see what more rules they crop up like that, and what kind of maybe that might mean for, dare I say it, 11th edition maybe.
Oh my god. I'm going to skip the stratagems, and the last thing I'm going to talk about is Big Guns Never Tire.
Oh, my favorite.
Big Guns Never Tire has changed to monsters and vehicles can shoot and be shot at even while they're within engagement range of enemy units.
Oh, what?
Each time a ranged attack is made by or against such a unit, you then have to subtract 1 from the attack's hit roll unless shooting with a pistol.
Wait, so that's if you're in combat and you're shooting, you get -1 to hit, right?
Yeah, so
Okay.
if you're the monster or vehicle shooting into combat, then you get -1 to hit. If you're shooting into a monster or vehicle that is in combat, you get -1 to hit.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Wow. Can you shoot out of combat though?
No.
Oh man, I wonder if Guard will have a mechanic for that.
Get the turret
with the
going,
turret, right? I thought the turret was a cool piece of design philosophy. Kind of made sense. So we'll have to see. Big guns never tire.
Very, very cool. Yeah,
Fire prisms never tire, apparently, because they can move 32 inches.
Unstoppable.
Imagine using your 17 fate dice on those.
Oh man. Yeah,
Scoop them up, split 3 ways.
Definitely extremely good anti-tank. But we'll have to see how the meta ends up and which guns become favored. Are we going to stick to the versatility of stuff like plasma guns, the high volume, low AP shots, or are we going to be really needing this very excellent anti-tank guns like fire prisms and rail guns and volcano cannons?
Yeah, your opponent might just rock up with 300 guardsmen, right? And then you look like a big of a numpty.
Fire, yeah.
There we go. Was that episode 24? Back to backer?
Yeah. Boom.
Ooh, 24 easy ones.
Yeah, quick, brief hot takes on the Warhammer 10th edition 40k preview so far, and a few of the core rules as well, but we'll definitely be touching on that more as we get more.
Yeah, and maybe some other factions come out that we really like to look at. We can delve into them a little bit as well. Some good ones coming up. And that'll be us signing off.
See you next time.
Bye. Thank you for listening to the 40k Fireside podcast. Vic and I hope you've enjoyed listening, and we greatly appreciate any feedback that you can provide after the show.